I don't know about you, but as I get older, it feels like someone I know, whether a friend, a family member, or a neighbour, is either receiving a new diagnosis, in treatment for an illness, or recovering from some kind of sickness. It's become a constant background hum. So when I caught up with an old friend, Warren Foote, someone I've known for nearly a decade, our conversation about his counselling practice took an unexpected turn. We started talking about something I'd never really heard of before: health anxiety. Warren shared that it's becoming increasingly common in his practice and that the ripple effects are staggering. In fact, estimates suggest that visits to A&E across the UK related to health anxiety are costing the NHS an eye-watering 33 billion a year. That made me sit up and take notice. So in this episode, we're figuring out what health anxiety is, why it's on the rise, and what we can do practically to address it. Let's dive in. Warren, in a previous conversation, you said that one of the most common things you see in your therapy practice is health anxiety. What is it?
Health anxiety is essentially the excessive worry about having or developing serious illness, even when there's little medical evidence to show there's anything wrong at all. Now, some people might say that it's just being health conscious, but it's really not. Health anxiety goes way beyond reasonable concern about our health and becomes preoccupying, distressing, and often exhausting because it goes on all the time. If we're anxious about our health, we're constantly anxious until we know that there's nothing wrong. From a rational emotive behaviour therapy perspective, and REBT is the model of therapy that I practice, it's not the physical symptoms themselves that cause people to be disturbed and anxious, but it's the beliefs that they hold about what the symptoms they're experiencing actually mean. So it's driven by irrational demands like, I must never feel unwell, or it would be awful or unbearable if I got sick. The most common one that I experience when dealing with clients with health anxiety: I've got this symptom, I must know now that there's nothing seriously wrong with me. And these beliefs, these demands lead to unhelpful behaviours, constant symptom checking, constantly seeking reassurance, either from family members or going to the GP all the time. But it could also work in the other way. It can lead to people avoiding seeking help. I can't bear the thought of knowing that there's something seriously wrong with me, so I'm never going to go to the doctor. So it can be really pernicious and have a long-term detrimental impact on the way people live their lives.
Are there any more examples of how health anxiety manifests itself in daily life?
Yeah, I mean, repeatedly checking our bodies for signs of illness. So even when there's nothing wrong with us, scanning, that radar is constantly switched on, constantly scanning to see if we can pick up on any twinges or pains that we wouldn't otherwise notice. Or constantly Googling symptoms. Oh, I've got this ache. I better Google that. I better see what it is. And, we all know that Google's great at telling us the worst case scenario. So we can disturb ourselves simply by seeking the information that we look for.
Wow.
Misinterpreting normal sensations. Everybody gets twitches and aches, stomach discomforts from time to time. So taking those symptoms and totally misinterpreting what they actually mean and jumping to the conclusion that something must be seriously wrong, like cancer or heart disease or brain aneurysm, whatever it might be.
Wow. This is different, isn't it? So many of our listeners will experience moments of high stress, of high health stress, in life. Most of us have moments of those. But In your experience, what drives and sustains longer term health anxiety?
Rigid thinking. Rigid thinking is, I think, the one thing that really maintains not just health anxiety, but any anxiety. Believing things must or should be a certain way. For example, I must know for certain that I'm healthy, or I couldn't bear it not to know now that what I'm experiencing isn't serious. That's rigid thinking. Catastrophic beliefs. If I get ill, it'll be the end of me. I couldn't handle it if I have a worst case diagnosis. Or it might relate to family worries. If I die, who's going to look after my children?
Yes.
Who's going to provide for my family? So this rigid, straitjacket thinking is what maintains anxiety. Short-term relief from reassurance or avoiding the issue altogether just feeds the cycle. So even when a doctor gives you a clean bill of health, you might still say, yeah, that's fine, but I'd like a second opinion on that. Or even if we go to the doctor and we get the all clear, a week later we might say, yeah, but that was last week. Something might have happened between then and now that could be serious, so I better get it checked again. There's often also a low tolerance level for uncertainty and a need for constant control over our body. And that's irrational because we can never have complete control over our bodies. So we don't like the discomfort of not knowing. I can't bear not knowing, so I must know.
Wow.
And in rational emotive behavior therapy terms, we encourage people to try and shift from this straitjacket rigidity to a much more flexible, realistic position. I prefer to stay healthy, but I can cope if I'm not.
Yes.
I'd prefer to know now that there's nothing seriously wrong with me, but it's not the end of the world if I don't know now. So taking a much more flexible approach in the way that we do with other things. And I think it's important to make a distinction here between anxiety and worry. Worry is a human reaction. We need worry. Worry is the thing that keeps us safe. We can worry about things because it helps us to assess risk. So there's nothing wrong with worrying about our health, but there's a big difference between worry and anxiety, where anxiety is an exaggeration of badness and an underestimation of our ability to cope. We can go to hospital for an operation and we can be worried about the outcome, but we're keeping it in perspective. Yeah, I'm worried about this, but I'm in good hands and I believe I'm going to be looked after. Whereas anxiety is, this is going to go wrong. The operation's going to go wrong. I'm going to die. If I die, who's going to look after my family? That's the difference between worry and anxiety.
I love that you say that worry is what keeps us safe. Yes. But there seems to be a big difference in society at the moment between worry and anxiety. So if someone is listening and everything you've said has somehow resonated, they find themselves in this rigid thinking, wearing their straitjacket that's increasing this health anxiety for them. What might they do practically this week to start to unpick that or start to ease the burden of the health anxiety that they're feeling?
I'd start by naming what's happening. This is anxiety. It's not evidence of illness. So stop thinking that anxiety is part of you. Take it out of your head. This is just anxiety. These are just thoughts, not evidence. The next thing I think I'd advise is just pause and ask, am I worrying here or am I problem solving? Am I wasting time being anxious or am I actually doing something practical? So anxiety tends to be repetitive, fear-based. Problem solving is action-focused. Okay, I'm worried about this pain that I have in my body, but I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to see how it feels tomorrow. If I'm still worried, then I might phone the GP, rather than, I've got this pain, I'm going to phone an ambulance now. Obviously, it's worth saying that if you're seriously worried, it's not something that's happened before, and you're not somebody that is usually anxious about this sort of thing, then of course, err on the side of caution. But if you know that you have this predisposition to health anxiety, then pausing and waiting is something you can do practically. If you find that you're constantly in this state of anxiety, try scheduling some what we call worry time. So rather than trying to suppress anxious thoughts, contain them to a 10 or 15-minute period at certain times of the day, saying, okay, I'm not going to waste my time on this anxiety now. I'm going to wait till 11 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to give myself 15 minutes of worry time when I can fill my boots and really make myself as anxious as possible. What often happens there is that 11 o'clock will come and go, and we'll forget all about it.
Wow, now that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. I particularly love that movement from the anxious thinking, the catastrophization, to action. The difference between those two, one is taking action and one is internal. That is brilliant. If you enjoyed this, you might also enjoy my life satisfaction assessment. It's a 30-minute program where I guide you through a deep dive into 10 areas of your life to assess what's bringing you joy and what's bringing you down. I call it Derailed. It's a fabulous place to begin a joy at work redesign.